So there has been a discussion going on what feels like as long as time. It's been going on before band practice, during band practice, at shows, at writing sessions, on the internet, all social media platforms. I've seen it, and on online blog forums, and that is, what key is Sweet Home Alabama by the band Lynyrd Skynyrd in? Now, of course, the answer is out there, and before we get to why it's in the key of G, I'm sure you've seen videos on YouTube. Want to plug Adam Neely real quick, his video.
The last four chords of a 12-bar blues in the key of G. So it would seem that we're in the key of G, right? And if you ask Google right now, that's what it will tell you after all. So then why is this the thumbnail for this video?
He breaks down some really cool stuff in there, so check that video out. But I'm going to get straight to the point and answer it right now. My opinion and my answer of why the song Sweet Home Alabama is in the key of G is because of perfect fifths. There you go. That's the answer. You can turn the video off. Or not, if you want to understand and know why. But it's because of perfect fifths. So, here's the thing. It's in the key of G, right? But a lot of people, myself included, in the beginning thought that it was in the key of D. Now, the chords that we basically play, the chord progression, if you will, that we basically play in Sweet Home Alabama is D, which is the 5 in this song, C add 9, which is the 4, and of course G, which is the 1. So basically what I'm going to do is cover about 5 different points in this video and break it all down, so hopefully everyone has maybe a better understanding of why it's in the key of G. And the reason, in my opinion, the reason why is because perfect fifths. So let's dive into it. So let's look at a little bit of music theory. Actually, a little bit more than just a little bit of music theory. And I know sometimes that term music theory is a turn off. It can be confusing. It can be very vast, but I want to see if I can break it down so everybody can understand. So let's look at 2 things first. It's in the key of G, right? We know that. So why is it in the key of G? Okay. So if we look at a G major scale, right? Since that's what key it's in. Just know that when it comes to music theory, basically they established music theory, if you will, gave us the roadmap to music theory, deriving from a major scale. So that's where all of music theory derives from, if you will, to kind of make it simple. So if we look at a G major scale, and we just play, starting on the top string 3rd fret, 7 notes and back to the 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now, in a lot of rock and roll music, classic rock, southern rock, etc., blues, of course, even country rock, a lot of those modern forms of music, when you get into the chord progressions to a lot of those songs and the formulas, as they're using something that we all know, right? The 1, 4, 5. So over the years, the numeric number system has been adapted, obviously made famous by the city of Nashville, the number system, if you will. So if we just look at the 1, 4, and the 5, right? That G, since we're in the key of G, is the number 1, right? C is number 4, D is number 5. So if we also look at a G major scale, we know that there is G, C, and D in a G major scale, because I just played it, right? There's that one, there's the D, and our other notes. So if we look at a D major scale, I'm going to start it on the top string 10th fret. G and D major share roughly the same notes. Now, one thing that I want to point out that is the difference, it's a big difference for this song, is that the key of G has the letter C in it, the note C in it, I should say, and D major has C sharp. So if this song was in the key of D, a C sharp add 9 to G wouldn't sound right, correct? But a C add 9, a C chord does. Because C is in a G major scale, C sharp is not. C sharp is in a D major scale. So there's that. Now, if you've seen Adam Neely's video or comments on line, different forms, etc., another thing about this people like to point out is how, well, is it in D mixolydian? So now we're looking at guitar modes, right? So to go back real quick, so we've got a really quick, brief understanding, you can break it down and chase the origins back to the guitar in the medieval time period, pretty much originating from something like a mandolin, if you will. So when you get into guitar modes, they have these medieval names, right? Like Aeolian, Mixolydian, Dorian, etc. So if you look at D mixolydian, it's essentially kind of like a hybrid scale of G and D, and they share similar notes. However, it is not D mixolydian. You could use D mixolydian in that scale, maybe for soloing if you would like. If you're improvising, you're playing this song with some friends or with your band, you're covering it. You know, you can use that, of course, as an option because they have similar notes. But that gets us into our next point, which is understanding song progressions, chord progressions. So chord progressions, right? So using chord progressions essentially is what gives us the song formula for a song. And there is all kinds of chord progressions out there that songs are wrote off of. Another great video out on YouTube, shout out to David Bennett. He has a really good video on 7 chord progressions and why they work. You can check that out.
Now the 4 chord, much like the 5 chord, doesn't necessarily feel resolved. It doesn't want to stay here. So we need to go back somewhere, and that pushes us back to the 1 chord.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Yes, I was there, I remember it all too. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish you left a small town there, living in a lonely world.
I'll also attach links to these videos in the description section of this video if you guys want to go check those videos out and watch the full thing. I like how they break a lot of this stuff down in all these videos that I'm suggesting. And for some of this music theory stuff like this, stay tuned. I'll be making some videos in the future kind of giving my take on some of this stuff, chord progressions and other parts of music theory, if you will. But looking at Sweet Home Alabama, we know now that the chord progression, since it's in the key of G, is we're playing a D, which is the 5, 4, 1, right? And that essentially just repeats pretty much throughout the whole song. That's essentially the integral part of the chord progression of the song. Right? Even when it gets into the chorus and all the other stuff, when they change it up a little bit, and that's still D. It's just a chord inversion of D. Chord inversion of C to G. And even on the chorus, it's just still playing 5, 4, 1. Still playing D, C, and G. So, which brings me to my next point, which is understanding chord progressions and how they work, right? So let's go back really quick to this G major scale. Okay? So if I look at the 7 notes again, if I count them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to the 1, right? So the notes within that major scale, we can also make chords off of those and come up with chord progressions off of those to write songs with, right? So when we look at these different chord progressions based on scales, there's something very, very important and integral to this that we need to know, because it changed the types of chords that we play in the scale. So we counted them out, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to the 1. So check this out. When it comes to making these chords based off this scale, know that always the 1 is major, 2 is always minor, 3 is always minor. Now we're at 4. That's what I meant to say a second ago. 4 is major, 5 is major, 6, I'm going to play it right here so I can make this minor chord is minor, 7 is always augmented, then back to the 1, which is major. So 1, 4, 5 is always major, 2, 3, 6 within that 7-note scale is always minor, and 7th is diminished. You don't see 7 a whole lot. Depends on, you know, the music that you're playing. You see it a lot, in my opinion, more like in soul music. I posted a little short video on my Instagram a couple of days ago about using that 7th diminished chord. I used the example of Sarah's Smile by Hall & Oates. You can go find me on IG. Check that out. May do something on YouTube later on diminished chords, so stay tuned for that. Hit the bell icon, right? But looking at it, so these 7 notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So first chord that we play on the first note, the tonic, the root is major, 2nd is minor, as we said, 3rd is minor, 4th is major, 5th is major, 6th is minor, and the 7th is augmented, not augmented, diminished. And back to the 1 is major. So 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6 minor, 7 is diminished. There's a really cool video too by David Potts that you can check out on YouTube as well. Chords in each key.
The 1, the 4, and the 5 chords are major. The 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor. If you remember that, that's going to get you a lot of mileage, right? The next thing, as far as this big table goes, if you memorize anything beyond that, memorize those first 5 keys, right? The C, the G, the D, the A, and the E. And start by maybe just memorizing the 1, the 4, and the 5 in each of those keys.
So when we think about just the 1, 4, 5, right? And all that classic blues music, blues rock, country rock, etc., you know, stuff like staying in the key of G. Right? You hear that typically in a major tone. You can also blend it a little bit, like I think, and use major and minor when it comes to the soloing, right? I think of ZZ Top Tush, which uses, it's in the key of G, 1, 4, 5, G, C, D, right? Those same chords. Etc. So if I just wanted to improvise over that, I could use a G minor pentatonic scale, right? Or if I wanted to blend some major with it. So that works, right? It's 1, 4, 5 is major. Now what's cool is when you start adding the 2, the 3, and the 6, how it's minor. How you can use that to add contrast, if you will, in songwriting. But when we look at Sweet Home Alabama by Lynyrd Skynyrd, we know now that the 1, 4, and 5, what that is, not only is it G, C, and D, but we also know that it's major, so that makes sense why we're using major chords for Sweet Home Alabama, right? So when it comes even to the guitar solo, when Ed King kicks in on his solo, exactly. Some of those notes are in there, sorry, Ed. But he's playing that basically out of a G major scale shape, and that's why that works. So even if you're playing live off the cuff, use that D major scale. Again, it sounds correct and it sounds like it works because they share the same similar notes, even with D Mixolydian. And, you know, I'm guilty, if you will, of using a D major scale off the cuff before, you know, playing this song with people over the years in different bands. A lot of people do it, but if you ever wanted to know what key it's in, it is in the key of G, and it is because of perfect fifths. So, and one more thing that I'll leave you with. Now, what's so cool about perfect fifths, let's take it from a power chord perspective, right? So if we play this G power chord right here, essentially what you're playing is the root, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The root, the 5, and a root. Higher octave G note, if you will. So this is also called a 5 chord. This is a G5, and it doesn't matter where I play that power chord shape, it is still a 5 chord. So we call it a power chord. That's more commonly used instead of a 5 chord, but just know it's a 5 chord because you're playing the root with the 5th note in that scale, right? So even if I go down to the A string and play a C chord, I'm playing the C and the 5th note in a C major scale, right? So I go to D, same thing. So if I, again, take the higher octave note out and just do... So going back to G, what's cool about the perfect fifth is that it is the dominant note in a G major scale, or any major scale, if you will. So since I'm in the key of G, let's say if I played a G major bar chord, or a G minor bar chord. Now, the way I used to, and still do, teach power chords is when teaching, let's say, bar chords first, I tell people, now we can condense this down, if you will, and get to just the meats and the potatoes, and we call that a power chord. Right? So we're taking out all those extra notes, all those extra little pretty sounding notes, or dark and sad sounding notes that make a chord major or minor, and if we just get down to the meats and the potatoes of it, right, it strips back to this. But that fifth is dominant, especially when you get into scale degrees. And we know that we have perfect fifths because that 5th note can go with a G major or a G minor. It's that anchor, it's that dominant note to it. With any chord that I make, major or minor, if I'm using a bar chord, I still have to make that note. And if I take all those extra notes out and I get down to a power chord, which is essentially what we use for rock and roll, right? It's just a root and a 5th. So that's what's so cool about, in my opinion, Sweet Home Alabama being in the key of G, is because perfect fifths. There's the 5th there. We just so happen to be starting the song on the 5th and not the root. Songs don't always start with what key that they're in. Another good example, there's a video out on YouTube. I'm sure a lot of people seen this when it first came out. I'll think of the name of the group. Maybe I can find it and edit a clip to put in here.
What's that? What's a 4-chord song, Benny?
If you want all the greatest hits from the past 40 years, just use 4 chords. Same 4 chords for every song. It's dead simple to write a pop hit.
Just 4?
Yeah, these 4. Hit. 1, 2, 3, 4 chords.
Sorry, let me get this straight, Chicken Little. What you're trying to say is you can take those 4 chords, repeat them, and pump out every pop song ever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Where basically they're taking this formula, if you will, that these chord progressions like Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, She Will Be Loved, and then they just keep singing these different songs while playing the same chord progression. Right? Because, you know, songwriters, musicians, bands, artists, etc. alike over the years realize you can take these progressions and you can write songs to them. Not only can you write songs to them, you can write really big hit songs to them. So something that's super, super cool. And again, the reason why Sweet Home Alabama is in this key is because of perfect fifths. There you go. Be sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon, especially if you found this video helpful. Again, I'll attach some links of the people that I mentioned earlier in the video below. Stuff from my website, giving out a free course to everyone on or video, free lesson, if you will, on the Jam and Jewell method, how to play every note on the guitar scale. So make sure you check that out. And stay tuned. I'll be doing some more videos and some deep dives and all kinds of stuff in the future. So